The fluorescent lights of São Paulo's Sé metro station flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across the sea of rushing commuters. Sofia Mendes adjusted the strap of her worn messenger bag for the third time that evening, her shoulders aching slightly, not from the weight of textbooks and her laptop, but from the familiar burden of carrying secrets she could never share. At 28, Sofia had perfected the art of blending in, moving through the crowded platform like water flowing around stones, present but unnoticed, there but invisible. She'd been working as a translator for a small import company for 2 years now, grateful for a job that paid enough to cover her studio apartment in Vila Mariana and let her pretend she was just another professional navigating the chaos of Latin America's largest city. Atenção passageiros, the automated voice announced over crackling speakers. The Red Line train toward Corinthians Itaquera is approaching the platform. Sofia glanced at her phone. 1847. She was running late for her evening Portuguese to English translation class at the Language Center, but the crowd was thicker than usual for a Tuesday. Bodies pressed together in that uncomfortable intimacy that defined rush hour in a city of 12 million souls. That's when she saw him. A small boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing absolutely still amid the river of moving people. While everyone else flowed toward the arriving train, he remained frozen near a support column, his small face tilted up as if searching for someone much taller. His clothes were expensive. Sofia noticed these things automatically, years of training making her catalog details before conscious thought kicked in. Dark jeans, a collared shirt, leather sneakers that probably cost more than she made in a week. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, wide, trying desperately to be brave, but edged with the particular terror of a child who just realized he was completely alone in a place he shouldn't be. Sofia's first instinct was to keep moving, to let someone else handle it, to stay invisible as she'd trained herself to be. But something in that small, frightened face pulled at something she'd thought she'd buried 3 years ago when she'd walked away from everything. She approached the boy carefully, crouching down to his eye level the way you would with a frightened animal. "Oi," she said softly in Portuguese, keeping her voice gentle and non-threatening. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The boy's eyes fixed on her, and she saw the exact moment he made the decision to trust her. "I can't find my uncle," he said, his voice small but clear. His Portuguese was perfect, but carried the faint trace of something else, French, maybe, or Italian. "We were together, and then there were so many people, and now I don't know where he went." Sofia's mind was already cataloging details with the efficiency of old training. Approximately 1. 2 meters tall, light brown hair with slight curl, hazel eyes with gold flecks, small scar above left eyebrow, speaks Portuguese fluently, but it's not his native language, well cared for appearance suggesting stable home environment, no visible signs of distress beyond the current situation. "That's scary," Sofia acknowledged, not dismissing his fear but validating it. "But you did exactly the right thing by staying in one place. I'm Sofia." "What's your name?" "Lucas," the boy replied, then hesitated before adding, "Lucas Ashford." Ashford, not a Portuguese name. British, probably. Sofia filed that information away. "Okay, Lucas, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the security office right over there." She pointed to the small station office visible across the platform. "And they'll help us find your uncle. They have speakers that can call him. Does that sound good?" Lucas nodded, then surprised her by slipping his small hand into hers. The gesture of trust from a child who'd been taught not to talk to strangers sent an unexpected wave of emotion through Sofia's chest. They were halfway to the security office when Sofia felt it, that prickling awareness on the back of her neck that meant someone was watching. Not the casual observation of crowded public spaces, but focused attention, predatory attention. Her training kicked in before conscious thought. She didn't turn to look, didn't react visibly, but her peripheral vision cataloged the threat. 2 men, 30 meters behind, moving against the crowd flow, eyes locked on Lucas. Not police, not security, something else. Sofia's heart rate accelerated, but her breathing remained steady, another product of training that had saved her life more than once. She squeezed Lucas's hand gently and shifted their trajectory, moving them toward a section of platform with more security cameras and better sight lines to the exit stairs. "Lucas," she said, keeping her voice light and calm, "I need you to do something for me. Can you be very brave?" The boy looked up at her, and Sophia saw intelligence in those hazel eyes that seemed too sharp for a child his age. "What do I need to do?" "We're going to walk a little faster, and when I say now, I need you to run with me to those stairs." She nodded toward the exit. "Don't look behind us. Just hold my hand and run. Can you do that?" Lucas's small face set with determination that reminded Sophia uncomfortably of herself at that age. Yes. They were 10 meters from the stairs when one of the men following them moved with sudden purpose, closing the distance. Sophia didn't hesitate. "Now!" she commanded, and they ran. Sophia had forgotten how fast fear could make you move. They hit the stairs at full sprint, Lucas keeping pace with surprising agility. Behind them, she heard shouting, angry Portuguese mixed with what sounded like Russian, but she didn't look back. They burst through the turnstiles, Sophia using her monthly pass to push through while pulling Lucas through the accessibility gate. The station attendant started to protest, but Sophia called back, "Emergency! Call security!" They emerged onto the street into the sensory assault of São Paulo at dusk, car horns, street vendors, the smell of grilling meat and exhaust fumes. Sophia pulled Lucas into the flow of pedestrians, moving with purpose but not running, blending into the crowd as she'd been trained to do. 3 blocks later, she ducked into a cafe, busy enough to provide cover but with clear sight lines to the door. She found a table in the back corner and finally looked at Lucas properly. The boy was breathing hard but not crying. His face was pale but composed. "Those men were looking for me," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Sophia wanted to lie, to tell him he was imagining things, but she saw the intelligence in his eyes, the way he'd handled the danger without panicking. This child had been prepared for something like this. "Yes," she said honestly. "Do you know why?" Lucas's jaw tightened. "Because of my father." Before Sophia could respond, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Every instinct screamed not to answer, but something made her accept the call. "Miss Mendes." The voice was male, British accented, carrying the particular authority that came from years of command. "My name is Marcus Ashford. I believe you currently have my nephew with you." Sophia's blood ran cold. She'd been careful, so careful, and somehow this man had her name, her number, and knew exactly where his nephew was within minutes of their escape from the metro. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said automatically, even though they both knew it was futile. "You pulled Lucas through the accessibility gate at Say Station exactly 4 minutes ago. You're currently in Café Bella on Rua da Consolação. And if you check the street outside, you'll see a black Mercedes with diplomatic plates pulling up in approximately 30 seconds. Sophia's eyes snapped to the window. Sure enough, a sleek black Mercedes was parking directly in front of the cafe. "Who are you?" she demanded quietly, conscious of Lucas watching her with those 2 intelligent eyes. "Someone who needs to have a conversation with you about why a former ABIN operative with a level 4 security clearance is currently working as a translator and living under a moderately convincing false identity." Marcus's voice carried no threat, just statement of fact. "Bring Lucas to the car, please. I promise you're not in danger. At least not from me." The call ended before Sophia could respond. She looked at Lucas. "Your uncle is here." The boy's face brightened with relief, all his forced bravery crumbling now that safety was close. "Uncle Marcus came? You know him?" Sophia asked, though it was obvious. "He's my dad's brother. He takes care of me when Dad is away." The slight hesitation before those last words told Sophia everything she needed to know about what away really meant. Sophia took a deep breath, weighing options that all felt inadequate. She could run, but Marcus Ashford had already demonstrated he could track her. She could call her old contacts at ABIN, but she'd burned those bridges when she disappeared. Or she could face whatever was waiting in that Mercedes and hope her instincts about protecting this child hadn't just ended her carefully constructed new life. She chose the last option, mostly because Lucas's small hand had found hers again, trusting and warm. The Mercedes was even more impressive up close. Armor-plated, Sophia noted automatically, with reinforced glass and diplomatic immunity that meant it existed outside normal law enforcement. The rear door opened as they approached, revealing a man who could only be Marcus Ashford. He was perhaps 45, with the same hazel eyes as Lucas, but harder, colder, carrying the weight of things seen and done that couldn't be unseen or undone. His suit was Savile Row, his posture military despite the civilian clothes, and his eyes catalogued Sophia with the same efficiency she'd used on Lucas. "Uncle Marcus!" Lucas released Sophia's hand and climbed into the car, throwing himself at the man with the unself-conscious affection of a child who felt truly safe. Marcus's face transformed as he caught his nephew, all that coldness melting into something achingly human. "Hello, troublemaker," he murmured, checking Lucas over with hands that were both gentle and methodical, looking for injuries. "Gave us quite a scare." Then his eyes rose to meet Sophia's, and the coldness returned. "Miss Mendez, please, get in. We need to talk." It wasn't really a request, Sophia knew. She slid into the Mercedes, and the door closed with the heavy thunk of serious money and serious security. The interior was leather and wood, luxury that Sophia had once moved through with ease during her ABIN days, before she'd decided that particular life was killing her slowly from the inside. Marcus sat across from her, Lucas secure at his side, and pressed a button that raised a privacy screen between the front and back seats. "How did you find me?" Sophia asked, because that seemed like the most important question. "You've been careful," Marcus acknowledged. The new identity was well constructed, professional level, probably from your time at ABN, but you made one mistake. "What mistake?" "You couldn't quite hide your training when it mattered." Marcus pulled out a tablet, showing her security footage from the metro. "Watch." Sophia watched herself spot Lucas, assess him, approach with perfect, non-threatening body language. Then the moment she sensed danger, the way her entire posture changed, weight shifting to balls of feet, head turning to maximize peripheral vision without obvious head movement, hand instinctively calculating the fastest route to safety before conscious decision-making kicked in. 17 years in military intelligence, Marcus said quietly, and I've seen maybe 3 people move like that when they think no one's watching. One of them was your mentor at ABIN before he retired. One of them is me, and now you. Sophia felt her carefully constructed world cracking around the edges. "You've been watching me." "We've been watching this entire metro station for 3 days, Marcus corrected. "Ever since we received intelligence that Lucas would be targeted during his weekly trip to his piano lesson. We had 6 undercover operatives positioned throughout C Station. You happen to be the one Lucas trusted." He paused, studying her. "The question is why? Why would a 7-year-old boy who's been trained to be cautious around strangers immediately trust someone he'd never met?" Sophia looked at Lucas, who'd fallen asleep against his uncle's side with the sudden exhaustion of a child whose adrenaline had finally crashed. "Because I was honest with him. I treated him like a person, not like a child who couldn't understand that he was in danger. And because he has good instincts about people," Marcus added. "His father made sure of that before." He stopped himself. "Before he disappeared," Sophia finished. Marcus's face went carefully blank. "What do you know about that?" "Only what anyone with basic research skills and ABIN training could figure out," Sophia said. "British intelligence officer, specialized in deep cover operations in hostile territories, dropped off everyone's radar approximately 4 months ago during an operation somewhere in Eastern Europe, officially listed as on extended leave. Unofficially presumed captured or dead. His name is James," Marcus said quietly, and Sophia heard all the things he wasn't saying in those 3 words. "He's my younger brother, and he's not dead." "How can you be sure?" "Because they're using Lucas to draw him out." Marcus's hand rested protectively on his nephew's sleeping head. "The men following you weren't just random operatives. They were FSB, Russian intelligence. They wanted Lucas alive, which means they think James will come for his son." Sophia felt pieces clicking into place. "But James doesn't know his son is in danger." "No. James has been in a Russian prison for 4 months. No contact with the outside world. He doesn't know we've been protecting Lucas, doesn't know there's been a target on his son's back since the day after his capture." Marcus's jaw tightened. "And today, someone inside our organization leaked Lucas's location to the Russians." "Someone betrayed you," Sophia said, understanding the implications immediately. "Someone betrayed my brother's son," Marcus corrected, and Sophia heard the promise of violence in his voice. "Which brings me to you, Miss Mendez. Or should I call you by your operational name? I believe Nightingale was what ABIN called their best interrogation specialist." Sophia hadn't heard that name in 3 years. It landed like a physical blow, bringing back memories she'd spent those 3 years trying to bury. That person doesn't exist anymore. Clearly she does, or you wouldn't have identified the threat to Lucas before any of my 6 trained operatives did. You wouldn't have executed a textbook extraction under pressure. And you certainly wouldn't have made it 3 blocks before I could get a vehicle to your location. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes intense. I need someone I can trust, Sophia. Someone outside my organization. Someone the Russians don't know about. Someone with your particular skills. No, Sophia said immediately. I left that life. I'm not going back. I'm not asking you to go back, Marcus said. I'm asking you to help me protect a 7-year-old boy whose only crime was being born to a man who believed intelligence work could make the world safer. He pulled out a photograph. A man, perhaps 35, with Lucas's exact eyes and a smile that suggested he'd once been carefree before life had taught him otherwise. James Ashford, presumably. My brother is rotting in a Russian cell because he discovered something he shouldn't have. Something about weapons trafficking that goes higher than anyone wants to admit. He'll be tortured until he gives up his sources, and then he'll be killed. Marcus's voice was steady, but Sophia heard the emotion underneath. And his son will be used as leverage until none of it matters anymore. What are you asking me to do? Sophia asked, though she already knew. I need someone to stay with Lucas, to protect him while I work on extracting James, someone who can't be traced back to British intelligence, who doesn't appear in any official databases, who can blend in as just another person in Lucas's life. Marcus met her eyes. I'm asking you to be his bodyguard disguised as his new nanny. Sophia laughed, the sound bitter even to her own ears. You want me to be a nanny? I want you to be what you've always been, someone who protects people who can't protect themselves. You left Abin because you couldn't stomach the moral compromises anymore. This isn't that. This is protecting a child. Pure, simple. Nothing in this world is pure and simple, Sophia said, but she was looking at Lucas's sleeping face, so young and vulnerable, despite his brave front. No, Marcus agreed, but sometimes the right thing is clear even when it's not easy. Those men will come for Lucas again. I need someone I can trust to keep him alive until I can get his father back. And Lucas, he paused, something almost like wonder in his voice. Lucas trusted you instantly. That matters. Sophia thought about the life she'd built. Quiet, safe, invisible. She thought about the ghosts that still haunted her from operations that had required her to compromise her ethics for mission success. And she thought about a small hand slipping trustingly into hers. 1 month, she heard herself say. I'll stay with him for 1 month while you work on extracting your brother. After that, I'm done. For real this time. Marcus nodded slowly. 1 month. And Sophia? Thank you. You just saved this boy's life. That matters more than you know. As the Mercedes pulled away from the curb, Sophia watched the city lights blur past and wondered what she'd just agreed to. She'd spent 3 years building a quiet life, convincing herself she could be normal. One conversation had reminded her that some things, some skills, some instincts, some responsibilities, you carried forever whether you wanted to or not. Lucas shifted in his sleep, and his small hand unconsciously reached out, finding Sophia's and holding on. She looked down at that trusting gesture and felt something crack open in her chest that she'd thought she'd sealed shut years ago. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe this was different. Maybe protecting this one child could be the redemption she'd been searching for since the day she walked away. Or maybe it would destroy what was left of her carefully constructed peace. Either way, she was committed now. The Mercedes drove on into the São Paulo night, carrying a former spy, a missing operative's son, and the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the past doesn't let you walk away. It just waits for the right moment to call you back. The Ashford safe house was nothing like Sophia expected. She'd anticipated something clinical and temporary. White walls, minimal furniture, the sterile functionality of a place meant to be used and abandoned. Instead, Marcus brought them to an elegant townhouse in Jardins, one of São Paulo's most upscale neighborhoods. The exterior was understated, high walls covered in climbing plants, a discreet gate, but inside was a home that clearly had been prepared with Lucas's comfort in mind. We've had this house for 2 years, Marcus explained as he carried the still sleeping Lucas upstairs. James insisted on somewhere that would feel normal to Lucas if we ever needed emergency accommodation. He wanted his son to feel like wherever they were was still home. Sophia followed him up the stairs, noting the security measures hidden behind elegant design, reinforced door frames, panic room access disguised as a linen closet, windows that looked ordinary but were almost certainly bulletproof. Lucas's room was on the 2nd floor, decorated in blues and grays, with books lining shelves and a desk by the window where a laptop sat open to a half-finished homework assignment. Photos covered one wall. Lucas with a man who had to be James, both of them grinning at various locations around the world. Brussels, London, somewhere with palm trees that might have been Southeast Asia. A child who'd grown up in constant motion, Sophia realized. No wonder he'd adapted so quickly to danger in the metro. Marcus laid Lucas gently on the bed and removed his shoes with practiced care before covering him with a blanket. The gesture was so tender that Sophia had to look away, uncomfortable with witnessing that level of vulnerability. "He usually wakes up once in the night," Marcus said quietly as they left the room. "Bad dreams. James used to sit with him until he fell back asleep. I've been doing it since—" He didn't finish the sentence. They descended to a study that was all dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves that held everything from intelligence briefings to children's storybooks. Marcus poured 2 glasses of scotch from a crystal decanter without asking if Sophia wanted one. "You should know what you're walking into," he said, handing her a glass. "The truth about James's operation and why it went wrong." Sophia took the scotch but didn't drink, waiting. Marcus pulled out a file. Always a file, Sophia thought, just like the old days, and spread photographs across the desk. 4 months ago, James was running an operation in Moldova tracking a weapons trafficking network. Nothing unusual. These networks pop up constantly in former Soviet territories. But James discovered something that changed everything. He pointed to a photograph of a middle-aged man with cold eyes. Dmitry Volkov, former KGB, current arms dealer, and the kind of man who has more blood on his hands than most wars. James realized Volkov wasn't just trafficking weapons. He was trafficking nuclear material. Specifically, enriched uranium that had gone missing from a decommissioned Soviet facility in Kazakhstan. Sophia felt her stomach drop. How much material? Enough for 3 dirty bombs, possibly a crude nuclear device if he found the right buyers. Marcus's face was grim. James tried to go through official channels, but someone in the intelligence chain was compromised. Within 12 hours of James filing his report, he was grabbed by FSB operatives and disappeared into Russian custody. "And now they're using Lucas as leverage," Sophia finished. "They think if they can grab Lucas and make it public, James will give up his sources to save his son." Marcus drained his scotch in one swallow. "But James doesn't know. He's been in total isolation. The Russians are counting on him eventually hearing about threats to Lucas through their intelligence networks, but we've been blocking every attempt to get that information to him. Why not just extract Lucas? Take him somewhere completely off the grid? Because James is still alive, and as long as he's alive, he'll find a way to send us a signal." Marcus's voice carried absolute certainty. "My brother is the best deep cover operative Britain has produced in 20 years. If he's alive, he's working an angle. And when he makes his move, he'll need to know Lucas is safe but reachable." Sophia processed this, the old analytical part of her brain kicking in despite her desire to stay uninvolved. "You think James is planning an escape? I think James has been gathering intelligence for 4 months while pretending to be broken. I think he's figured out exactly who betrayed him and why. And I think when he comes out, he'll need us ready to move immediately." Marcus refilled his glass, then Sophia's despite her protest. "Which brings me to the real reason I need you. Not just as protection for Lucas, but as someone who can read people the way you used to. Someone who can spot the traitor in my organization before they make another move against my nephew." "I was an interrogation specialist, not counterintelligence," Sophia protested. "You specialized in knowing when people were lying, when they were hiding something, when their words didn't match their micro-expressions and body language." Marcus leaned forward. "I have 6 people in my immediate team. One of them sold out my brother and his son. I need you to figure out which one." Sophia stood, moving to the window to put distance between herself and this conversation that was pulling her deeper into exactly what she'd tried to escape. "You're asking me to go back to everything I left, the analysis, the suspicion, the constant evaluation of everyone around me. I'm asking you to use the skills you developed to protect people you care about," Marcus corrected. "Not for some abstract mission objective, not for national security theater. For Lucas, for a 7-year-old boy who just wants his father back." He stood as well, joining her at the window. Outside, São Paulo stretched endlessly, millions of lights marking millions of lives, most of them blissfully unaware of the gray world that existed in the spaces between law and chaos. "James made me promise something before his last operation," Marcus said quietly. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd keep Lucas safe, that I'd make sure his son didn't become collateral damage in someone else's war. I intend to keep that promise. He turned to face Sophia directly. I know what I'm asking. I know you walked away for good reasons, but Lucas needs you. And whether you want to admit it or not, I think you need this too. A chance to use everything you learned for something that actually matters. Sophia thought about the past 3 years, the careful construction of normalcy, the deliberate suppression of instincts that had kept her alive through some of the darkest operations Aben had ever run. She'd convinced herself she could be someone else, someone simpler. But tonight, when it had mattered, she hadn't been that simple person. She'd been Nightingale, moving with purpose and precision to extract an asset from hostile territory. She'd felt alive in a way she hadn't in 3 years. 1 month, she repeated, and then you find someone else. 1 month, Marcus agreed. Starting tomorrow, you're officially Lucas's new nanny. We'll create a cover story. Brazilian woman, degree in early childhood education, impeccable references that won't hold up under deep investigation, but will satisfy casual inquiry. And during that month, you keep Lucas alive, help me identify the traitor, and be ready to move the moment James makes contact. Marcus extended his hand. Deal? Sophia looked at that hand, knowing that shaking it would mean stepping back into a world she'd tried to leave behind, but she also heard Lucas's small voice in her memory. I can't find my uncle. She'd found him. She'd protected him. And maybe, just maybe, she could keep that promise a little longer. Sophia shook Marcus's hand. Deal. But Marcus, when this is over, I'm gone. For real this time. Understood, Marcus said. But something in his eyes suggested he didn't quite believe her. And honestly, Sophia wasn't sure she believed herself anymore either. Day 1 of playing nanny began at 6:47 a.m. when a small person jumped onto Sophia's bed in the guest room with the enthusiasm of someone who'd gotten 8 solid hours of sleep and saw no reason why everyone else shouldn't be equally energetic. Are you really staying? Lucas asked, his hazel eyes bright with hope that made Sophia's heart clench. Uncle Marcus said you'd be here when I woke up, but I wasn't sure if I dreamed that part. Sophia pushed herself up against the pillows, trying to orient herself in the unfamiliar room. I'm really staying. For a while, anyway. Your uncle hired me to help take care of you. Like a babysitter? Lucas wrinkled his nose. I'm 7. I don't need a babysitter. Like a friend who happens to be around, Sophia amended. Someone to hang out with when your uncle is busy. Think you can handle that? Lucas considered this seriously. Will you play video games with me? The last person Uncle Marcus hired said video games were rotting my brain. That person sounds boring, Sophia said, earning a delighted grin. I happen to think video games are excellent practice for strategic thinking. But first, breakfast. Deal? Deal. The morning routine was surprisingly normal. Breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast that Lucas helped make, discussion of his homework, mathematics and Portuguese literature, and casual conversation that revealed Lucas was frighteningly intelligent for 7. Reading 3 years above his grade level and casually dropping facts about Brazilian geography that suggested extensive travel. Dad and I used to drive to different cities on weekends, Lucas explained, carefully buttering his toast with the precision of someone who'd been taught to do things correctly. He said it was important to understand a country beyond just the capital. We went to Salvador, Recife, Curitiba, lots of places. Sounds like your dad is pretty smart, Sophia said carefully. Lucas's face brightened. He is! He speaks like 5 languages, and he can do this thing where he just looks at people and knows if they're lying. It's like a superpower. Then his face fell slightly. I miss him. Sophia's heart broke a little. I bet he misses you too. Uncle Marcus says Dad is on a really long work trip, but I know that's not exactly true. Lucas met her eyes with uncomfortable perception. Dad's in trouble, isn't he? That's why those men were following me yesterday. That's why you're really here. Sophia had to make a choice. Lie and treat him like a child who couldn't handle truth, or respect his intelligence and give him honesty. She remembered what had made him trust her initially, treating him like a person. Yes, she said simply. Your dad is in a difficult situation, but your uncle is working very hard to fix it. And while he's doing that, I'm here to make sure you stay safe. Can you help me with that? Lucas nodded seriously. What do I need to do? Listen to me when I say something is important. Don't argue if I tell you we need to move quickly. And trust that even if you don't understand why I'm doing something, I'm doing it to keep you safe. Like when you made me run yesterday, Lucas said, understanding dawning. You knew those men were bad before I did. Exactly like that. They shook hands solemnly, a pact between two people who understood that sometimes normal was a luxury you couldn't afford. The rest of the week fell into a pattern that felt almost like real life. Sophia walked Lucas to school each morning, an exclusive international academy in Pinheiros, with security that Marcus had vetted personally. She attended his piano lessons, his swimming classes, sat through homework sessions, where Lucas's facility with languages made her nostalgic for her own childhood as the daughter of diplomats. But underneath the routine, Sophia was working. She memorized the faces of every person who showed even casual interest in Lucas. She cataloged the security weaknesses in every space they inhabited. She identified 3 separate surveillance attempts, 2 probably innocent, 1 definitely not, and reported them to Marcus each evening. And she met Marcus's team. They came to the house one by one over the course of the week, each with plausible reasons that wouldn't raise alarm if anyone was watching. Sophia evaluated them the way she'd been trained, looking for tells, inconsistencies, the tiny micro-expressions that revealed when someone's words didn't match their beliefs. Catherine West, 34, communications specialist, sharp, efficient, clearly devoted to Marcus, but with occasional glances at Lucas that held something that looked almost like guilt. Possible, Sophia noted. David Chen, 42, logistics coordinator, calm, methodical, answered questions with exactly enough detail, but never more. Too controlled, which could indicate either professionalism or careful concealment. Probable. Maria Santos, 29, local contact coordinator, nervous around Sophia, which could be simple discomfort with strangers or awareness that Sophia was evaluating her. Tense body language suggested stress, but not necessarily deception. Possible but less likely. Thomas Erickson, 51, senior field operative. Hard eyes, harder past, barely concealed contempt for what he clearly saw as babysitting duty. Didn't try to hide his belief that Lucas should be in proper protective custody rather than maintained in semi-normal circumstances. Unlikely, his disdain was too obvious to be an act. Sarah Kim, 38, intelligence analyst, quiet, observant, asked Sophia careful questions about her ABIN background that felt more like vetting than curiosity, either cautious by nature or gathering information for someone else. Very possible. Robert Pierce, 45, security systems specialist, friendly, almost aggressively so, with the kind of practiced charm that came from years of recruiting sources, too eager to share information about his own background, most likely. Sophia reported her initial assessments to Marcus each evening after Lucas was in bed. Pierce seems most probable, she said on day 5, nursing a glass of wine while Marcus reviewed her notes. He's working too hard to seem trustworthy, which often indicates someone overcompensating for guilt. Robert's been with me for 8 years, Marcus said, but his tone carried consideration rather than dismissal. But you're right that his behavior has changed since James's capture. More jovial, more communicative. I'd attributed it to stress. Or it's genuine and someone else is playing us, Sophia countered. Chen is almost too controlled. Kim asks questions that probe without seeming to. Even West has moments that don't quite fit. Marcus set down the notes. And me? Do I make your list of suspects? Sophia met his eyes directly. If you were the traitor, Lucas would already be gone. You've had opportunity and means. The fact that you're still trying to protect him while working to extract James suggests your loyalties are exactly where they appear to be. Fair assessment. Marcus almost smiled. I'd forgotten what it was like to work with someone who trusted their analysis more than politics. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Marcus spoke again. James used to say the hardest part of deep cover work wasn't lying to targets. It was maintaining enough truth in your life that you didn't lose track of who you really were underneath all the deception. Wise man, Sophia said quietly. He'd like you, Marcus said. You have that same quality he does, that ability to see through the performance to what people really are. It's a rare gift. Sophia thought about her years at ABIN, about the operations that had required her to unmask liars while becoming an expert liar herself. It's not always a gift. Sometimes I wish I could take people at face value, believe the surface story. But you can't, Marcus said, understanding implicit. Once you learn to see the machinery behind the mask, you can never unsee it. No, Sophia agreed. You can't. Upstairs, they heard Lucas cry out, the familiar sound of nightmares that came most nights around this time. Sophia was on her feet before conscious thought, moving toward the stairs. Marcus's hand on her arm stopped her. Thank you, he said simply, for caring about him. It's not part of the contract, but it matters. Sophia didn't trust herself to respond. She just nodded and headed upstairs, where,